Hi, children. I'm going to read you the book called The Matzah Man. The author is Naomi Howland, and she's also the illustrator. It's a Passover story, and it's similar to The Gingerbread Man. Inside Mr. Cohen's bakery, the racks were filled with Passover matzah. The baker rolled out his last scraps of dough. He added a bit here and a pinch there and shaped the little man. He pricked the dough all over, popped it into the oven, and closed the door. Mr. Cohen was busy cleaning up when suddenly he smelt the matzah almost burning. He hurried to the oven and opened the door. But the minute he did, that piece of matzah jumped out and said, "Hot from the oven, I jumped and ran. So clever and quick, I'm the matzah man." And off that rascal ran around the sacks of flour between the legs of the baker and right out the door. "Stop, Matzah Man!" cried Mr. Cohen, and he began to chase the little Matzah Man. Through the village they raced. A red hen spied the little Matzah Man, crisp and crackly running by. The Matzah Man said, "Hot from the oven, I jumped and ran. So clever and quick, I'm the Matzah Man." "Stop, Matzah Man!" clucked the red hen. "You would make a tasty treat for my new chicks." The little Matzah Man looked at the red hen, stuck her nose in the air, and said, "I run from the baker whose matzah is best, and canoodle canoodle canoe, I'll run away from you too." And he went pell-mell over the fence. Cousin Tilly was sampling her tender Passover brisket when the toasty little Matzah Man brushed past her door. The Matzah Man teased her, saying, "Hot from the oven, I jumped and ran. So clever and quick, I'm the Matzah Man." "Stop, Matzah Man," Cousin Tilly said. "You'd be the perfect mouthful with my delicious brisket." The little Matzah Man waggled his finger at Cousin Tilly and said, "I run from the baker whose matzah is best, and from the red hen who left eggs in her nest. And canoodle canoe, I'll run away from you too." And that little scamp raced off from the road. Auntie Bertha was out shopping her brand new shoes. She saw the crunchy matzah man running right toward her. The matzah man said, "Hot from the oven, I jumped and ran. So clever and quick, I'm the matzah man." "Oh, please stop, matzah man," cooed Auntie Bertha. "You would look just adorable on the Passover table." The little matzah man made a rude face at Aunt Bertha and boasted, "I've run from the baker whose matzah is best, and from the red hen who left eggs in her nest. From old Cousin Tilly with brisket-filled pan and canoodle canoodle canoe, I'll run away from you too." And he scooted around the corner. Grandpa Solly was chopping onions for his special Passover gefilte fish. The onions were making him cry, but he could still see the matzah man through his tears. The matzah man said, "Hot from the oven, I jumped and ran. So clever and quick, I'm the matzah man." "Stop, matzah man," cried Grandpa Solly. "You'd be a delectable nosh with this gefilte fish." The little matzah man put up his hands on his hips and he bragged, "I run from the baker whose matzah is best, and from the red hen who left eggs in her nest, and from cousin old Tilly with brisket-filled pan, and big Auntie Bertha in high heels she ran, and canoodle canoe canoe, and canoodle canoe canoe, I'll run away from you too." And he sped across the bridge. Miss Axelrod was dropping the last matzah ball into her chicken soup when the brown little matzah man ran past. He shouted, "Hot from the oven, I jumped and ran. So clever and quick, I'm the matzah man." The little matzah man has such chutzpah. He said, "I run from the baker whose matzah is best, and from the red hen who left eggs in her nest, from cousin old Tilly with brisket-filled pan, and big Auntie Bertha in high heels she ran. Then Grandpa Solly from onion he's crying, and canoodle canoe canoe, I'll run away from you too. And zippity-zap, away he went. A gray goat was pulling their young radishes out of the garden when he noticed the tasty little Matzah man. The Matzah man stamped his foot and said proudly, "Hot from the oven I jumped and ran, so clever and quick, I'm the Matzah man." "Stop, Matzah man," bleated the goat. "I would like to have a bite of you." The little matzah man laughed and said, "I run from the baker whose matzah is best, and from the red hen who left eggs in her nest, from Cousin Otillie with brisket-filled pan, and big Auntie Bertha, in high heels she ran. Then Grandpa Solly from onions he's crying, and then from Miss Axelrod, matzo balls flying, and canoodle canoe canoe, I'll run away from you too." And he hurried past the goat. Just at that moment, Mendel Fox came to the door of his house. What a commotion! Mendel saw the little matzah man running down the road, chased by the gray goat, Miss Axelrod, Grandpa Solly, Auntie Bertha, Cousin Tilly, the red hen, Mr. Cohen, and the baker. The matzah man looked back over his shoulder and he panted. "Hot from the oven I jumped and ran, so clever and quick, I'm the matzah man." "Stop, Matzah man," Mendel said. "I'll help you." "Hide behind me." The matzah man flattened himself behind Mendel. "They're getting closer," Mendel shouted. "Hurry, get behind the cushion." The matzah man covered himself up with the pillow. "I can still see you," cried Mendel. "They're coming up the steps." "Quick, hide here." The matzah man jumped up on the table and slipped beneath the matzah cover. Mr. Cohen looked around. "Did you see a little piece of matzah run this way?" he asked. Mendel shrugged. Miss Axelrod peeked under the table. The red hen picked up the cushion on Grandpa Solly's chair. No one could find the matzah man, so one by one the tired guests plopped down in their seats. "Let's begin the seder," said Mendel. He handed his grandfather the plate of matzah. Grandpa Solly reached under the matzah cover. Snap! The matzah was broken. The plate was passed around the table. "Tasty matzah," said Gray Goat between bites. Now the horseradish was making Grandpa Solly cry. He nibbled a piece of matzah. "Ooh, so crunchy and delicious," through his tears. "The best matzah we ever ate," agreed Cousin Tilly, Auntie Bertha, and Miss Axelrod. The red hen pecked at her matzah. "Crispy," Mr. Cohen smiled. Everybody ate a piece of matzah except Mendel Fox. He had 2 pieces. And that was the end of the Matzah man. The end.